Okay, thank you, Mr. President. We'll go ahead and begin the State of the City. I'm thankful that the department heads are still here as well. And I'd like to thank council for sticking around. I know some of you have been here since 4:30 and some since 5. The department heads have been here since 8 o'clock or so this morning. But really everything that we do, or all of the service in the city, is directly related to each one of these department heads and their staff. It starts with them and it works its way right down, and day in and day out they make us proud. So in the my problem is coordinating doing this and talking at the same time. So we've talked over the years about delivering exceptional services to our businesses and our citizens, and over the years you begin to wonder, well, how do you measure it? You talk about it, but how do you measure it? So I thought I'd just give you some examples of what we see day in and day out. We have a number of disabled residents in the city and aged residents that have trouble taking their own trash cans down. So our sanitation folks have identified where they are, and assist them with that. They'll go up behind the house or in the garage, side of the house, wherever it is, take it down, put it in a truck, and take it back for them to assist them. We had an elderly fellow that goes to church with me raking his leaves on Walnut Drive, and his arms got so tired by the time the truck was getting there, he couldn't get them beyond the sidewalk. He just couldn't lift his arms up anymore to keep raking. And so what he did is he flagged down the truck and asked him if he could have a little bit more time. Instead, what the guys did is got down off the truck and helped him rake him the rest of the way to the curb and sucked him up for him. And again, just another example. You saw in the newspaper, I think, the sanitation worker that found the birthday money in a card. They set the card aside. They go back to the house and deliver it to the resident who inadvertently had thrown it away. In April of this year, more recent incidents, a lady, I see her between the glass doors here, and she's kind of like she's confused whether she's going to come in or she's going to go out, and she's got some papers in her hand. And I asked her, I said, ma'am, do you need some direction or something I can help you with? She said, I don't know what to do. I need to come over here to the utility or to the engineering department to get a set of plans, and I've got the check right here, but I got 2 kids sleeping in the car, and I'm afraid to get them out of my sight. So Fred just happened to be by the door there, one of our engineers. Fred comes over, takes her check for her, walks it over to finance, gets her receipt, gets her the plans, and as he's handing them to her in the glass door there, he tells her, I've got 2 kids of my own. I know exactly what you're doing. I'm glad you kept an eye on those kids and took care of her. We had a Medina resident stop by, and his father had recently passed away. He's got a cell phone that was issued by a county department, and he needs to just turn it in. He's trying to plan the father's funeral and visitation, and Dawn took the time to call the county agency to ask about the process of turning this phone in. Well, we're closing at 4:30, and if he can get up here by 4:30, we'll wait for him. If not, he's going to have to come back another day. Well, this guy's from out of town. He's here. He's got so many days to get these things taken care of and then go back to where he lives. So Dawn found online what the process was to return the equipment. We took care of that for him and let him tend to the visitation and the funeral. Councilman Lamb had to leave tonight for another meeting, but he called on August 9th. This is the day before the South Court Street tour. And of all days, that Friday, they decided they're going to frame and pour the sidewalk for some of those areas that had been removed and just had gravel placed. So we got together with Nino. They were able to use a quick set concrete to where we poured it that morning, had the frames removed and the dirt put back on the sides of it so that it was good to go by Saturday, and the South Court Street tour could go on as planned. Mr. Rose mentioned the resident on South Court or on Lawrence Street that found the dead cat on the first day of school and removed it. The other thing he did is he's going to take this up to his house now. This is, I think the first day of school was Tuesday. Well, his garbage day is Friday, just like mine. So he's got this thing in a bag, had rubber gloves on. He's going to take it up to his house. And I'm thinking, in August, heat 3 days in the garage is not going to be a pleasant sight. So I offered for him, if you want to just lay it there in the tree lawn, we'll have somebody come down and pick it up in a pickup truck and get it in one of the garbage trucks. And he said that he hardly got in the house and got the gloves off and looked out, and the bag was gone, and he was very appreciative of that. The police officers were trained by SUM and the Cleveland Clinic on the Narcan treatment for heroin overdoses. You all are aware of that. That was an unusual partnership that paid dividends for us and for them. But what you're not aware of is that most of the counties around us have lost people to heroin overdoses because of the cutting agent fentanyl being used. And because of the officers and LST and our emergency room all having Narcan to give it to them quickly, we have not had the deaths that the other ones had as a result of that. So again, I think these are examples of the great staff we have and the excellent working relationship we have with the council, with the Chamber of Commerce, and with the administration. So residential and business initiatives, some of the more recent things that we're doing. The rec center and robust parks that we have for people to get out and enjoy, to stay healthy. The June of 2012, we started the Community CIC, Community Investment Corporation. We did the Christmas lights initially for $43,000. Then we've added on a couple things since then to try to make it different each year and draw folks back. Online bill paying was implemented. And then much like we did with the Community Development Department, we saw the advantages there of combining three different departments together and the efficiencies of that. When we had the opportunity to appoint Jansen Worley as our Parks Director with his experience in forestry and assisting at the cemetery, we combined those three departments. And the advantage of that from a citizen standpoint is that we can then take that staff and move them around to wherever the greatest needs are. So if we have several burials on one day and we need extra people there, if we have some events going on in our park that we got to get them all spruced up, we can shift the people there if we're having less burials. So it really gives us flexibility in using the staff as effectively and as efficiently as we can. And probably some of the best news you'll hear in this report is that we expect in the fall of this year to take over the residential and commercial plumbing inspections. We filed the paperwork with the state. Their meeting to review that paperwork is second or third week of September, and they told us that we would know the answer to that within a day or so of that meeting. There we go. Roads and infrastructure, we're doing a great job out in the industrial area. Overall, when it's said and done from 2012 to probably 2015, we'll have done almost $13 million worth. That includes Commerce Drive being completed, Lake Road south of Lafayette for $2.5 million. West Smith Road from the lake to the railroad tracks was $3 million. The Lake Road Phase 2 from Lafayette to Smith is going to start this fall doing the underground utility work and then the reconstruction in early 2015. That's another $3 million. And then finally West Smith Phase 2 from in 2015, the latter part of 15, from Plastipac to Standard Welding, just a little bit east of State there. The last year we did State Route 3 in East Reagan, foot road improvements to move the traffic, add dedicated turn lanes in each of those, as well as the 18 and 57 resurfacing. This year we're doing 42 and 3 resurfacing. ODOT was very gracious to us to meet and decide what's the best way to handle the traffic, handle the detours, including night work. They included in the bid night work in some of the commercial areas so we wouldn't adversely affect the residents. So from Huntington Street to North Street on 42, they're doing that work at night for us, which costs them a little bit more, but they were willing to do it. They've also used some of our officers for traffic control. And 42, I just want to mention, 42, we're only going to a little bit south of Harding Street there, about by the north end of Waite's Funeral Home. And the reason for that is that if the bond sales go through for the Turnpike, we expect that the 42 widening to 5 lanes north of there with the center islands and the improvements we've talked about, which is a $47 million project in and of itself, will take place in 15 and 16. Again, that's contingent on the bond sales, and they do not have a particular date yet for that. So some of the business initiatives, we're continuing with county economic development, with the Chamber of Commerce and with Main Street Medina to do grand openings, ribbon cuttings, sometimes even anniversaries, 25-year anniversary, 30-year anniversary. The Coalition, Brownfield Coalition grant, as you recall, we received $1 million for Phase 1 and Phase 2, and we're getting near the end of the grant deadline, but we still have about $200,000 left. So we're asking our federal legislators, Kimberly Rice is asking our federal legislators if they would be willing to give us an extension on that, and hope that we could use that $200,000 remaining. But as you looked at the map, we just had a public meeting for it over at the library, and as you looked at the map, you recall we had all the surrounding townships as well as Chippewa Lake, and we tried to have projects in each one of the participating groups. The expansions that were held recently at Drug Mart and Sandwich, part of their problems, well, not problems, part of their requirements were that we had to stay within their timeline, Sandwich in particular, because they have such a short window of when it's not their busy season. Their busy season goes from about March to October. So we had from October to March to make sure that we got out there when they needed the inspections, keep them on track, and get them back in business so that they could start up those lines, and we were able to accomplish that, and they were very appreciative of that. We are working on 3 permanent water connections with the county. The only thing that's holding it up right now, we know exactly what we need to do. We know exactly where we need to do it, but it's just the fine tuning of the language of the contract. Mr. Huber and Bill Thorne from County Prosecutor Dean Holman's office are working on it. We're within a couple words of getting it done. And March of 2014, we established the Lafayette JED to offer us some additional opportunities there. So in the residential arena, our parks are still open all year long. Jansen and them have done a great job with that. My personal opinion is the more we can keep the public in the parks and keeping an eye on things, then the less chance we have of damage and vandalism. We started the senior and senior disabled snowplow program, active military also. The first year we did it, we had 39 participants. That was when it was 50%. We raised it to 65% of the HUD median income. That took us in 2012 to 55, and in 2013 to 62. So we've seen a bit of an uptick with that, but these are people that are surely benefiting from us doing that. We had 2 water increases in July of 2012 and January of 13 that were not passed on to the lowest end users and seniors, those using less than 100 cubic foot per month, but we did have to increase this year just because of the depletion of our water fund, as well as the increases that we continue to see from Avon Lake. We did the first big day of serving April of 2012, and again that helped handicapped residents and local senior citizens that couldn't take care of their own yards. And then what the local churches decided to do, the big day of serving, was kind of a national organization. You had to buy their shirts and you had to follow all their processes. So what they did is decided then in the first Saturday in May of both 13 and 14, they just call it the day of serving. We meet out at the city garage. They get lists from our senior snowplow lists, from other churches, from their own churches, and then they just go out en masse and help lay mulch, help pick up twigs, help plant flowers, sometimes paint. We try to do mostly things outside, but try not to have the people inside just for the risks involved there. Okay. Employee initiatives. We've had leadership training for all of our department heads and supervisors, sexual harassment training for all department heads and supervisors. We created a healthcare committee consisting of employee representatives to promote wellness initiatives and to help control the healthcare costs. That started in 2010. Then September of 2012, Dr. Tulisiak and I worked together to establish a wellness program that was funded through workers' comp. Dawn takes care of that grant for us, and we were able then to establish the wellness program, all voluntary, until we were able to then work it into the collective bargaining agreements that we negotiated this year. We've had CPR and AED training for all the city employees, and the one thing that I want to mention is just the support that the hospital has given us. It used to be when I started with the police department, and then for years that we would be the backup to LST and help them get equipment, help them get the cots. Well, that kind of changed from just simply being another set of hands and legs to being trained in first responder training. Then the hospital clinic giving us AEDs for each patrol car. So now if the officers got there before the squad and the person needed the AED shock, that we could take care of that. Then the hospital trained us for trauma care for the officers themselves. If the officer got stabbed, if the officer got shot, they would carry the kits with them to care for themselves, including a tourniquet. Well, then when we started looking at these mass shooting incidents, we said it would really be helpful to us if we had kits in each car so that when an officer went into the school, instead of having to bypass all of these victims laying around, that we could at least try to sustain them long enough to get them outside and get them help. And each one of those requests, ending then with a Narcan of late, was welcomed by the hospital, and they provided all of it at no cost to the city. And I can tell you that when I asked the Speaker and Senator Obhoff to change the Narcan law to instead of being a one-year trial in Lorain County, to give our officers the chance to carry it, they didn't realize how significant that change was. And now as they're reading the saves in the paper, each time I see them, they tell me how appreciative they are that somebody brought that to their attention of how many people could literally die in front of us just because of not having the right equipment with them. And the only other thing I'd like to mention before I change this slide, if you look at that lower right picture, Miles Reed took that picture for us. That's this past winter when it was 5 degrees below zero. And we asked the sanitation workers, I asked Nino to check with them, would they rather work the Saturday where it might be warmer and take off one of these cold days during the week? And they said as long as they had their equipment on, their gloves. Nino also gave them the opportunity to take breaks, get in the truck, warm up for a little bit, and then go back out. But those guys, day in and day out, never missed a beat and got those routes done as cold as it was. Community initiatives, you can see there on the lower right, there's a picture of the urns. We started with 24 in 2010. We're up to 72 now. And that's about, my hope was to keep adding, but Jansen's a realist, and he said, with 72, about 3 people, that's all we can manage. And they're doing things, they're deadheading the flowers, they're watering the flowers, they're picking up trash between the flower pots. So it was not an infinite number that was possible to do. So those flowers in and of themselves are one of the most common compliments that we get in my office. People saying, you know, I was driving through your town, I was up at your town eating here or there, and those things are just amazing. In fact, some people wanted to know who makes them for us, and then ordered their own for their own yards. So we've worked with Main Street Medina and other organizations to draw people to the square. We've been very successful, in fact, so successful that Jansen is now coming up with a plan where we're going to have to shut down different areas of the square to regenerate the grass, which is a problem with which each of these things. There's other challenges, but not. It's a good problem to have. It's a much better problem than people not coming to the square. Just tonight we passed the Key Bank drive-through renovations, which I think are going to complement that as well. I don't like people to think the government isn't learning from our mistakes. Years ago, when there was trouble with the ash trees, apparently we didn't learn with that, but now with the ash borer, we're finding that we have to take entire streets out. So rather than replace them with a single variety or species like we used to do, now we're putting a mix of trees on there so that if the next insect that comes along or the next disease comes along, rather than replace an entire street, we just have to do those ones that are adversely affected. The Archive Commission, Roger shared with me, the Archive Commission opened the History Museum on Public Square. It's been open for about 9 months, and they've estimated approximately 5,500 attendees already. And again, people commenting about the rich history and how they had no idea until they walked through there to see the strong history in Medina. And RFQs were obtained for the municipal court facility, joined to City Hall and the PD. And there's a team put together to review those and make a recommendation. And then the parking facilities, once that's determined, once the plan is determined, the parking facilities that are necessary for that will then be developed. And it's our hope that those parking facilities will also help support the further redevelopment according to the strategic plan that we did. So the airport administration building was opened up my first year as mayor. Miles Reed did a great historical room there to show the number of aviators in Medina County and what all they've taken part in, from wars to movies to flying General Patton. And I would encourage anybody from the public, if you've not seen that, to see it. Miles also set up a website for them to where a pilot can land. They can book dinner, they can book a rental car, they can book a taxi, they can book a golf game. Right up your alley there, Mr. Coyne. So the person can come there and have everything they need right there. They still do the pilot certification classes where they train people to be pilots, and a number of those people that they've trained at our airport have gone on to be commercial pilots. And then the university hospitals placed the medevac helicopter at the airport. That helps in Medina County and Summit County for the need for medical emergencies. That was in May of 2012. The upper right is the jet fuel was added in 2013, and it helps to create a revenue source that we didn't have before to match with our FAA grant dollars. And in the past 12 months, we've gained taken in about $60,000 in fuel sales. And then last but not least, this year, 2 new hangars were being constructed for airplane owners. And so far, 8 of the 10 have been purchased. And of those, 6 of those 8 are new pilots to the Medina Municipal Airport that were not in one of the former hangars. And the total hangars with the newly constructed just this past year are 33. So the financial position, the general fund, we have a reserve balance of approximately 73% of the revenue. The income tax in 2008 was $13 million. It dropped during the recession period to down around $12 million. In 2012, it came back up to 13.6, and last year was 13.4. So we're probably about where we're going to be unless we continue to add jobs or industry or major employers. The interest rates were low, so we refinanced the water and rec center debts and saved about $1 million over 10 years. We kept the bond payment the same, but we had the savings and the payments. We did a partnership with the schools for IT. We provide the school with a high school resource officer and a middle school resource officer that's shared between the 2 middle schools. And they provide IT services that otherwise we'd have to contract for. So I think from the public perspective, it shows the schools and the cities both working to spend their tax dollars as efficiently as we can. And just this year, just actually a week or so ago, that the city was notified of 2 grant awards from the Ohio Department of Development CDBG, there were 75 applicants for the projects, requesting in excess of $20.3 million. 34 top-ranking proposals were awarded $9.5 million, and the City of Medina received 6.3% of those grants. $300,000 for critical infrastructure, which is planned to replace Foundry Street for the investment being made at the old Henry Furnace, and another $300,000 for the downtown revitalization project, which will help with signs, facades, new paints that maybe some of the private owners can't help themselves with. But this is kind of a match where the grant pays so much and they pay so much. And the grant period is from January of 15 for 2 years until December of 16. And then the Finance Department has also received awards, Certificate of Achievement for Excellence in Financial Reporting from the Government Finance Officers Association for 2008, 2009, 10, 11, and 12. So for 5 years. And it's not that we didn't get it in 13 or 14. There's a two-year lag before those are awarded. So award-winning Medina in 2012, September of 2012, ING named Medina as one of the 100 best communities for young people. In November of the same year, Midwest Living magazine named Medina as one of the 25 best places to celebrate Christmas. In April of this year, Northeast Ohio Parent magazine featured Medina as a family-friendly city. And there was one other award. On February 24th, 2014, Governor Kasich chose the city of Medina to give his State of the State address. And that was at our Performing Arts Center. It brought in the state legislators, the cabinet, and the staff in town for the entire day. And there were socials at the Main Street Medina and Lager and Vine. We had to pick 2 locations, and then we had to shuttle the folks back and forth from the PAC to the socials and back. But the reason that we wanted to pick those two locations, not that we don't have a great group of restaurants here, but we just thought that the vision of the square and the downtown and the historic buildings was just something that we wanted each and every one of them to see, and the comments were very positive. So some of the logistics to accomplish this, I know you all attended, but to accomplish it, we had to do security both interior and exterior. So the students had school that day. When the students left and the staff left, they all had to be out of the building by a certain time. They had to actually walk through the entire school looking for any suspicious packages, anything in the trash cans, anything out of place. A request was made from the governor's office by the Highway Patrol to move the trash dumpsters that are generally between the Rec Center and the Performing Arts Center for fear that somebody could put something in that. So Nino's staff hung around later that afternoon to move them over to the old kindergarten center. We talked about the shuttles. They also asked us to limit the parking on the campus to only those with tickets. If you didn't have a ticket, they didn't want you, not only on the side where the Performing Arts Center was, but they also didn't want you over on the gym side. So we had to get that notice out to everybody, but I also felt bad that from the general public with the limited number of tickets that if they didn't have the opportunity. So we set up a watch party for them at the high school and included with the information of the watch party, the kindergarten center, Claggett, Sidney Fenn, our park on Homestead, different places that they could park and still be able to see it. So you all got to see it, but you can see from this photo that it was a packed house. And then the governor called up the 3 young ladies that were held hostage for over a decade, and they were graciously treated by those in attendance to a standing ovation as he presented them the Ohio Courage Medals for surviving that ordeal. And just what an honor it was for the city of Medina, Medina County, and I think the entire Northern Ohio region to host this event. So in closing, we're truly blessed to live in this community, and I'm just every day thankful and humbled to serve as your mayor. So if there are any questions, I'll answer those. You're probably ready for bed or dinner, right? So thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thanks for all you guys.